Let's talk about piecewise defined function. A piecewise defined function is a kind of function in which it is defined by several rules, more than one formula. Okay, and each of the formula has its own domain. Right. Let's take an example. So one of the first basic function that I would like to take is absolute value function. So which is given by y equals to f of x equals bar, okay, where the first definition would be negative x if x is less than 0. For negative numbers, you multiply the independent variable by -1, and for positive, if x is greater than or equal to 0, you write the numerical value as it is. This function is defined by two formulas. The first formula is y equals to negative x for x is less than 0, and second one is y equals positive x for x is greater than or equal to 0. Then its graph would be something just like this. So let's suppose this is 0 and this is x-axis and this is y-axis. So y equals to negative x would be a straight line just like this, okay, which touches the origin, and y equals to x would be something just like this one, y equals to x. All right, then the domain of this absolute value function is simply domain of f would be the domain of the first function y equals to negative x is negative infinity up to 0, and union for the second function the domain is of course 0 to infinity. So that's why collectively I can write this as negative infinity to positive infinity, or the entire real numbers. Similarly, the range of this absolute value function would be all the values that lies in vertical axis. So here you can see that in vertical axis there is no values in the negative hand side, negative part. Okay, so that would be 0 up to infinity, right? Since basically we know that absolute value function is a positive function, okay, just informal way to say every y value of absolute value function is always greater than or equals to 0. So that's all. Let's graph this piecewise defined function. F of x equals 4 for x is less than or equals to 0. F of x equals to 4 minus x squared for 0 is less than x is less than or equals to 2, and 2x minus 6 if x is greater than 2. First, let's go for the first one, fx equals to 4. That means this is simply y equals 4, and the domain for this piece is negative infinity or to 0. Okay, and we include this 0 also, since there is a equality sign. So that y equals to 4 is simply a straight horizontal line, and here let me draw a shaded circle. So that's first part, okay, that's the first formula. Now for the second formula we have y equals 4 minus x squared for 0 is less than x is less than or equals to 2. This quadratic curve will meet x-axis at 2 and -2. Thus our graph would be something just like this one, okay, and here also we don't include 0, but that's fine. X is less than or equals to 2 means we need to include this one, okay. And similarly for the third one we have y equals to 2x minus 6, okay. So this function, this straight line is for x is greater than 2. So its graph would be, okay, if you just plug in 2, okay, if you just plug in 2, then you will be getting 2 times 2 is 4 minus 2 minus 6 is -2, but we don't include it here since this 2 is already included in the second formula, so we don't include that in the third formula since this is x is greater than 2. And then let's take another point. So let's take another point. Suppose x equals to 4. If we consider x equals to 4, then 2 times 4 is this one, minus 6. So that's 8 minus 6 is 2. So that would be to somewhere here. Okay, so let's join these two. All right, so that's our drawing or graph of this piecewise defined function. Okay, now what is the domain and range? Domain of f would be, you can see this is simply negative infinity to 0. This is, for this formula, second formula, we have 0 up to 2. For this third one, we have 2 to infinity. Thus you can see that nothing is left out. No number is left out in this case. So we can write negative infinity to positive infinity is the domain of this function. And what is the range? Range of f would be, then let us look at the lowest point and highest point of this graph. The lowest point is negative 2. Okay, the lowest point of the vertical line, that's negative 2, and the highest point is, this keeps on going. Okay, this keeps on increasing, so highest point is infinity. And since negative 2 is not included, okay, so we go for open interval negative 2 up to infinity. So that's the domain and range of the piecewise defined function.